Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
And Eric V.
And today we are joined again by our very special guest, Sam. How are you doing, man?
Pretty good. Having a good morning.
Hell yeah, man.
Nice, dude.
So what's going on with your car?
Oh, did you see it was all jacked up?
No, you texted me and you were like, I might have some issues with my car.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, shit.
So what happened was I'm driving to work, and I noticed that the temperature gauge is like all the way maxed out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
I dealt with that earlier this
and
summer.
so I was like immediately found the closest shop. I should have pulled over and got it towed, but I was an idiot. So like I called my dad, and I thought he would know what to do, and he didn't tell me to do that, so I was a little annoyed. But
yeah,
I got to the closest shop. It wasn't that far away, but on the way there, I was making a right, like right when the light was changing. He's like, I better do it quick. And I, for a split second, wasn't looking because I was all frazzled about the oil, and I clipped somebody's front bumper. Yeah, and I mean, my car just has a dent. It's not too bad, and it'll be fine. But then eventually I was able to get to the shop, and they were like, well, it might be the head gasket, so your engine is just dead. And I was like, well, that's great. And it turned out it was just that the coolant was low because there was a leak in the system.
Yeah.
So it was, like $800 to fix like 2 leaks.
Oh, so it wasn't even like the radiator and the thermostat?
No, I mean, the thermostat housing needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
Or maybe the whole thermostat, but
probably because it got fried.
Well, they said it was actually it wasn't damaged from the overheating. It was already leaking.
Oh, okay.
So it was like they replaced. I forget what the other thing is, but anyways, I mean they.
That's not too hateful.
It wasn't too terrible. It wasn't. I mean, it was a time to just practice some of my program of just not reacting. It's just like I've set a goal for myself. I'm not going to cause myself any suffering that isn't necessary.
Ooh,
right.
That's a very specific
ambitious.
And fantastic goal.
It's very ambitious because almost all of our suffering is self-imposed.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So like there's that like there's like the 2 arrows story from Buddhism where like you get hit with 2 arrows. The first one's what happened in life, and the second one is what you did to yourself by the way you reacted to it. And the first arrow is inevitable, but you can pull that second one out. Mm-hmm. So I mean, for the most part, I stayed pretty calm and didn't agonize over anything.
Oh,
so
good.
that was.
I'm glad your vehicle is, mobile.
Yeah, it should last me for. I'm like in an internship right now. I don't even have an income at the moment, so like I'm living savings and stuff, and I plan to replace the car because it's old, but I would rather wait and kick it down the road another year, So I actually have like a job.
Yeah. How are you doing, Eric? How are your vehicles?
They're okay. I mean, I have the electric vehicle, so that takes some time to get used to. But, besides that,
the level of smarminess in that answer, like I felt through the microphone, and I hated it.
Okay, so I only have 80 miles with my car. Well, it is. I mean, it's a big thing. Like, I can't drive down to DC.
Dude, have you heard of all the Teslas exploding?
I don't have a Tesla.
I understand that. But
the Cybertrucks look like something from RoboCop.
No. From Hurricane whatever, all the flooding, it flooded the Teslas, and the Teslas started exploding.
Because of all the
I didn't
water.
hear about that.
They are not supposed to be submerged in water at all. And,
cars aren't really supposed to. I mean, that's more of a boat's
but
job.
an internal combustion engine is not going to fucking explode because it's flooded.
Well, I mean, that's a boat's job again, not a car's job.
Dude, but firefighters in North Carolina were like, we hate these things. We were like, fuck Teslas. Dude, because when they catch fire, they take hours to put out.
I mean,
because they have to have like a very specific chemical in order to stop that. It's a chemical fire.
Did I tell there was actually a fire.
We're getting way off the rails.
Well, hold on. Actually, speaking of fires, there was a fire out in front of our house like probably a month ago. I can show you the road damage. It was crazy. This truck, probably coming from Truett's, which is the butcher near us, literally just exploded in front of our neighbor's house, and like there were flames going above the tree line.
Those are tall trees.
Yeah, they're tall fucking trees. You can see like the burnt on like the top of the trees.
Yeah, those are like 100-foot tall trees.
It was fucking crazy. Me and my sister-in-law were just staring at it and was just like, holy shit, this fire is like 100 feet tall.
I would sit out there with my morning coffee just like,
But the residue smelled they used like fire retardant something, and it was like I could smell it for like a month. It was so fucking gross.
That is terrible. Okay.
But back
now,
on track.
Now to the reason we are here today. How about you give us a, rundown. What are we going through today, Sam?
Going through, I think we're going to be talking about mindfulness.
We are going to be talking
staying
about
present.
Absolutely.
Which is important.
And we will start with your experience. So, take it away and, we'll jump around as we go.
Yeah. So I got into studying like Eastern spirituality and some like esoteric Western stuff when I was like, maybe like 18 when I first started really getting into it. And but I went for all of the like typical like psychedelic drug addict stuff.
Of course.
I went for the altered state experiences and like more grandiose things like, complete enlightenment and that kind of stuff. So I was looking at all of those phenomena, and I somehow managed to study Buddhism for 2 years without ever learning about mindfulness, which was, I don't know how I did it.
How did you do that?
I think what I was reading was much more philosophy than spirituality.
Practice,
It was more the philosophical stuff. I would say studying, and I was reading several books. I wasn't like doing a deep dive really.
Yeah.
But
I would say I was studying medicine while I was,
sure,
fucking tripping out and reading medical textbooks.
Yeah. I mean, it's technically you were. But.
Were you?
Yeah. I took my mom's medical textbooks and I would get super fucking high and read medical textbooks.
Yeah.
That's fun.
You can do that. You can study medicine. Anybody out there listening
David,
to this, go online, buy medical textbooks. You can buy them.
We've talked about this. Like one of my favorite things was studying and doing homework when getting high.
Oh
so
yeah,
I get it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And people are like, how do you know so much? I'm like, well, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Cocaine. Wow. Yeah, man. So, anyways, I got to a point like I got clean in 2010, and I got in a relationship during my first year, which I don't know if that's always a bad idea, but for where I was in my recovery, it was a bad idea. Because I had spent the first half of my first year just like checked out. I wasn't really working a program. I wasn't being honest. And then I went through like a really sort of bottoming out and working, the steps. But I got, not in working them, but in getting me to the point where I was willing to do it honestly.
Yeah.
And I got in this relationship, and I pretty quickly realized that it was a mistake, and I ended it, and I felt incredibly guilty about ending it, which sort of tripped me into a pretty serious depression. And somewhere around that time, when I was kind of coming out of the depression, somebody I was sort of helping this kid out that was early in recovery. He was having some family problems, and he stayed over my house a couple nights, and he gave me a copy of The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Nice.
Which
is it Tolle?
It's Tolle, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
But
I'm saying Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. There's. Yeah. No, that's my understanding. But either way.
Yeah.
This Eckhart guy. I mean, I think that there are various detractors to his writing, but I found it very helpful because it presented the basic idea of being present in a very simple and very practical, like here's how you do it kind of way. And so I realized that, and this was my third step, I said that part of the third step for me is realizing or acknowledging that the past and the future are out of my jurisdiction.
Yep.
That like I can't control the future. I can't know the future at all. The past, my memories aren't even complete and entirely accurate, but I certainly can't do anything about the past. But right now, this is what I got. So I'm going to turn over the rest of time to God.
Now, I want to time out real quick. So, with, proper educational and guidance and therapy and whatever work, we can't necessarily change the actual events of the past, but we can reframe our perspective on it, which is in a sense changing the past, or at least how we're interacting with it.
I would think of that as more like changing history.
Okay.
Because the history isn't the past. History is the account of the past.
Yes.
So like we can change our personal history, I think. Yeah, but when we're doing that kind of work, it's helpful to stay focused right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm in my body, I'm present in this moment, and I'm going to reprocess it now with the more emotional maturity that I have that I didn't have when those things first started happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like when you were talking about like being in the relationship, which was bad, and like it's very much like I'm a believer. Like it was bad for the time.
Sure.
For the time that it was, because just as the tape plays through, you're here now, but you wouldn't be here now if that series of events hadn't transpired. So it just becomes a part of the story. And
I think that too is a dimension of mindfulness, that like one dimension of it is present moment. Mm-hmm. The other dimension of it is acceptance and non-judgment.
Yes.
It's a non-judgmental awareness of present moment. And I mean, I don't know how present you can really be while you're judging, but I think it's important. And the literature I've been getting into recently about applying this in therapy context really emphasizes the non-judgment part of it. Mm-hmm.
Define the non-judgment part. I think I know what you're talking about, but for anybody who's listening. Is that just sort of not like, whatever situation is necessarily good or bad?
I think it's like what you were saying, that seeing things in your life is like these events all contributed to me being where I am right now. And I can't, and we're all dependent on, like, none of us would exist at all if not for pretty much everything that's ever happened in the history of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, like, at some point you can be like, well, if I'm grateful for being alive, I have to, in a very non-judgmental, non-approving way. You're not approving of terrible things.
Yes.
But say, I can't take any element of experience and try to push it out of my experience or disown it. Like I think that the non-judgmental awareness, especially in therapy, comes to be useful in dealing with emotions.
Yeah.
And dealing with thoughts as well, because you have the thought and you think, well, I shouldn't be having that thought. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't you be having that thought? You are having that thought.
You're a human being.
Should isn't a very helpful concept.
Yeah, because then you're just putting a theoretical expectation into your brain onto really an ethereal concept, which is emotions and thoughts, which are beyond us.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, the way that we react and respond to the emotions and thoughts that we have has an enormous role in determining how we're going to feel and what our well-being and peace of mind, and even things like our cortisol levels and stuff like that is going to be, like the way we're responding. So, I mean, I think judgments are usually pretty reactive. I don't know that they're ever that conscious. Like, we might be aware what the judgment is, but it's not like we decided we were going to judge. It's just like we're in a snap. And there's probably some exceptions to what I'm saying, but just in general, it's much more of a reactive.
Yeah.
Whereas a non-judgmental mindful presence allows you to be more responsive by, instead of immediately labeling an experience,
Yeah.
And it can be helpful to say this is sad or happy, but instead of immediately evaluating whether it's good or bad, you're just present with it as it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times emotions are carriers of information. Mm-hmm. It's one of the ways that our minds encode the experience of the world. So we got to pay attention. And if I'm too busy saying this is bad, and then when something is bad, the immediate instinct is to try to get rid of it somehow.
Yes.
If I'm doing that, I might be missing something that's important that it's telling me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what you were talking about, kind of the transgression of, everything that's happened throughout the past. I was like, and you were talking about the bad things, like immediately my brain is like, the Holocaust. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. So I had to choose another one in my brain. I'm like, okay, what's a crazy thing that happened in the past that's like, it's not necessarily like
the Trail of Tears.
No, I went really far behind. I was like, okay, the meteoric extinction of the dinosaurs. I was like, okay, let's look at that in a strict
we didn't know those dinosaurs. It's
exactly.
Okay.
I didn't know those dinosaurs. They didn't have faces to me. Like, fuck Diplodocus. I don't give a shit about you. You're gone. That's like,
right.
But what about the little velociraptors, dude? They were only tiny. They weren't as big like as in the movies. They were
Jurassic
like
Park had lied to us as an entire generation.
And they didn't have feathers. And Spielberg knew that dinosaurs had feathers when he made the movie. He was just like, nah, this is scary.
Yeah, it's like,
scary. T-Rex, if T-Rex is 15 colors, it's not.
We're going to do giant lizards because nobody really likes lizards. And, birds can be kind of cute. They can say, probably want a cracker and stuff like that. Yeah, But yeah, looking at the mass extinction of the dinosaurs from more of an objective, just event of living, instead of like, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened, or like, because obviously you can't do that with the Holocaust. There's way too many. It's way too recent, and there's way too many moral implications.
I took a class called genocides. So there's other genocides that are just as bad as as that.
I hope it wasn't a night class. Yeah.
It was, dude. That was a crazy. I took it.
Started with 15 people, ended with 3. None of them dropped.
We
the
went
class.
over all of them. The thing that pissed me off, I even mentioned it in the class. I was like, "Where are the Native Americans here?" And he was like, "Oh, you're right. They're not in here." Yeah. And I was like,
interesting.
Well,
an odd oversight, right?
Interesting. The Americans don't talk about the Native Americans. Okay. See how it goes.
So what about you, Eric? What is your experience, perspective on mindfulness?
I mean, I try to practice mindfulness in my daily life. It's even with therapy,
it's very much a 10th step thing as well.
Yeah, it is.
I was thinking that on the way over here.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like what's like, even before you go into the 10th step part, like before I go into a situation, like what's my intent? Because I think you have to look at intention when you're also looking at mindfulness.
Okay.
Because like if you don't know why you're there, then like you're just gonna fuck it up probably, right?
That's true.
Like you should know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what you're doing before you're doing it, like you're not being very mindful. You're just kind of following like the tracks.
Yeah.
So I try to do that, especially with reactions. Like, so I don't get like too angry or too like pissed off at someone. I'm like, okay, Eric, think about this before you freak out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially in times of like difficulty, or just when things arise, like car problems or teeth problems with me.
Man, those teeth.
It's very easy to project into the future and look at like the monetary wreckage that this is causing, how much difficulty like this is going to stack up to be, instead of really looking at it in a very matter-of-fact way of, this is the issue and I can focus on the issue, which is going to cause me stress, anger, anxiety, whatever, any list of the quote-unquote bad feelings, bad thoughts, instead of really using my power of perspective to look at the solution. Because I think that's a part of mindfulness as well, is where is your focus? Because if my focus is strictly on the problem, then all I'm going to see is more problems, and that's just on a daily on a daily in and out of life. If all I'm seeing is problems, that's all I'm going to be looking for. Like the filter for problems is going to be wide open. Yeah. But if I'm looking for solutions and okay, these 3 teeth are fucked. Okay, I can cry about it and worry about I shouldn't have done all that cocaine and drugs back in the day. I should have.
Well, energy drinks too, man. Like those wrecked your teeth.
I stopped drinking energy drinks.
It doesn't mean
9 years ago.
It doesn't mean it didn't hurt your teeth.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a culmination of past coming back into the future. But the reality is like, okay, I have to do this in order to get to this point. And that's just what it has to be, and being in a level of realism about that is difficult, but necessary in order to put the steps forward on the solution path.
Yeah, I mean I like what you're saying about like the way that the world appears to you depends on your interpretation. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like an energy field thing, where it's just like I have this mental process going that is looking for bad stuff all the time, and so then the whole world looks bad. And that you see that with trauma. Sometimes people get in a very hyperactivated state, and because they were hurt by somebody, their mind, their brain is trying to prevent them from getting hurt again, and therefore the entire world looks dangerous.
Yeah.
As part of the therapy process is dialing it back and like reevaluating, making, in psychology they call it attributions, like re-evaluating those attributions to get the person in a state where they're not feeling threatened by absolutely everything all the time. Yeah.
And actually kind of like the pendulum swinging the opposite way, because for a long time in psychology and therapy and psychological medicine, doctors would help people identify their triggers. Sure. But really somebody a few years ago was like, what if we don't do that? What if we don't show these people their triggers? Because if these people, he basically, went with the theory that if they know their triggers, that's what they're going to be looking for.
Sure.
And
that makes a lot of sense.
And when like that situation happens, it's kind of going to be like an auto Pavlovian response of like, oh, this person said this thing, I'm supposed to react this way.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, well, maybe if we remove that, that ringing bell in their head, maybe we can, cut off that short circuit to that negative response.
Yeah, I think mindfulness offers an alternative approach there, because instead of looking out for what's going to be getting us off, like what's going to trigger me, instead just like cultivating some stillness in the present, so that you prepare yourself so that when something does trigger you, you have that deeper well of quiet and non-reactivity to respond to the situation. But it's the kind of thing that is probably not appealing to everyone as a solution, because if you take Paxil, it takes 5 seconds a day to take Paxil. If you do a kind of a cognitive behavior therapy, you do homework throughout the week, but you probably are spending 45 minutes or an hour a week doing it.
Sure.
If you do mindfulness and it's going to be effective, you pretty much have to be doing it pretty consistently throughout your days.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. But I think sometimes some like scrapes that we get into or problems that we have can result in an improved outcome. Like that, I think that happened for me with my drug addiction, is that it put me on, by finding recovery, it put me on a path where in some ways my well-being is probably better than it would have been otherwise.
Yes.
And with mindfulness, it's like, okay, you've got all these problems and mindfulness is a solution, but mindfulness also allows you to access the goodness of life and to really experience things. And I mean, food tastes better and you're more available to the people around you, and there's that relational mindfulness dimension. So it's one of these reasons for being pretty optimistic about whether it's a treatment process or just a spiritual process in somebody's life. This thing, because it's calling on so much of you, it's offering so much in return.
Yeah. And so, to tie, one end to another, how important is it like for people to at least, start some level of journey or work on mindfulness in a substance abuse recovery environment?
I mean, there's two things that we say in meetings a lot that I have like tied up with mindfulness for me. Okay. The one is just for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I think just for today is a principle, but people are like,
that's so bittersweet for me, though.
I can only live a day at a time. No, you can't. Yeah. You can't live a day at a time. That's a whole day. Like, what are you talking about?
That's true.
I mean, I'm being cheeky a little bit, but
yes.
But I try to distill it down to being present. Just for today is about being the present.
Yeah.
And try to keep it right now.
Yeah, 24 hours.
The other thing we say a lot is keep coming back.
Keep coming back.
And I mean, usually it means you're fucked up. Come to another meeting, right?
Yeah.
But I think
it's really like a bless your heart kind of thing.
Yeah,
bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. What a douchebag thing to say.
Back.
Bless your heart, sweetheart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you could say any awful thing you want as long as you follow it with that.
Yeah.
I'll bless your heart.
But I think keep coming back is useful in meditation. Because the practice of meditation is getting distracted and returning to your focus.
Yes.
Maybe some people...
I've never thought of that. Holy shit. You just kind of, like in a meditation, you're like, okay, keep coming back to, whatever kind of guided meditation you're going with.
And with that 10th step, too, like we noticed that we got off the beam. All right, come back to the beam. Like, we're not going to do anything perfectly. And
God damn you, Sam. You fucked up my whole life.
There's an AA speaker named Sandy B that talks about, he was an airline pilot, and he talks about when you have the homing beacon, the way it works is that it tells you when you're off course and you correct. Yeah. And you just keep doing that the whole time. You're never flying perfectly straight.
I mean, Einstein, he had the theory about the bicycle. You can never truly ride a bicycle straight.
Right.
You're always correcting left or right. And through the long run, it appears straight. But really you're going left to right constantly.
And I think that's life.
Yeah.
Right? That's everything. We're always doing that.
That's the hit right there.
Yeah.
You're always going left to right.
And this, there's so many people that I think don't understand the concept that balance is a verb.
Yes.
Like, and I didn't. Before coming to recovery, I thought it was a plateau you got to. You get to here. Oh, you have arrived at balance. Oh, thank you. And you fucking smooth sail from here on out. And that's not the truth. No. Like, okay, I have a house. I have a car. I have these things. Cool. I have this. Oh, now a tree fell on my house. Okay, well, I have to fix that. And we're like, okay, I fixed that. Oh, well, now, my car crashed. I have to fix that. And so it is constantly a juggling act. And, like, the way my mind looks at it is I have, like, this, room full of scales. Just tons of scales everywhere. And there's one person that is constantly trying to balance all of them. And they're, like, all, like, constantly teetering. And they're like, oh, shit, my emotional wellness. And you're like, oh, fuck, my relationships. And, oh, God damn it, my job. And there's just so much to do that people don't realize that it is. It is a 24/7, 365 work.
Yeah, it's... I heard that pretty early on in a meeting. Somebody said that. I was like, oh, wow. That's like... And there was so much chaos in my life. Just the concept of balance. I hadn't even considered balance at that point. I was just... No. Nothing was balanced at all.
No, I just wanted to stop going to jail.
Right, yeah. But I think it's another one of these things that it can sound... It's like the way you're looking at the world. Like, if you have a very sort of depressed mindset and or a very victim-based, like, self-pitying mindset, someone tells you, well, life is balanced and you're going to have to keep balancing your whole life. It's like, I can't believe that I have to do that for my whole life. Yeah. But really, it's more of this dynamic, like, flow, and it can be fun, like, to learn to move and sort of sway with what comes to you.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, and it's that kind of creative tension that we're held in, that if things were permanent and didn't shift around and change, we couldn't be creative and we couldn't experience anything new.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that goes back to one of the other primary tenets of Buddhism, which is that impermanence is the nature of all phenomena. There's nothing permanent in the universe. And then, with the possible exception of, whatever the ultimate consciousness is, right? That might be more or less permanent, but everything else is always
it's in transition.
Even like a mountain.
No, I know.
Mountains aren't permanent. They're just really old.
Yeah, they've just been there for a long fucking time. Were you about to say something, Eric?
No, I was about to talk about erosion, so we can just keep it moving on.
We're going to keep it moving. Absolutely.
Move along, sir.
Okay. We're going to start with you, Eric, on this one. So, obviously, one of the best, applicable practices for mindfulness is, beginning the process of learning and getting better at meditation. Mm-hmm. So, let's hear your thoughts and your process with that.
On meditation?
Yep.
Oh man, meditation's hard. Yes. I'm not gonna lie.
For sure.
Oh god damn it, I hit everything.
I need to go to David's meeting, but now I'm playing platform tennis on Thursdays. But I'll make it there one day.
Yeah. I just set my anniversary date, by the way.
Oh yeah, you need to give me that so I can take off. So I keep actually this what do you call it? This thing around my neck, like this necklace that has
stone.
No, it's like this whistle that doesn't actually make a whistling noise. It's more for like breathing exercises. Okay. So I kind of keep that on my neck to just remind myself to meditate and to like be conscious and like be mindful. I'm like, oh yeah, I have this device, this tool that will allow me to like calm down if I need to.
Okay, so it's a touchstone. Okay.
So, it's kind of how I'm working with like meditation right now. It's just hard to find the time and the energy, I guess the space to meditate sometimes, especially with like a kid.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm lazy right now when it comes to meditation. I need to up my game. But I can do it. I'm luckily one of the people who can meditate.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing about meditation is breathing exercises. If you're looking to get something like out of it that's calming, I think the breathing exercises help, where instead you're just kind of running through your mind like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah. And I had done some meditation like after Herb and I started working together, and he had me like read the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, and started talking about the way he puts it, like which is mindfulness, is policing your thoughts and monitoring your intentions. And he started me on breathing exercises and stuff like that. But then really in like the last 3.5 years or so, I got into my meditation home group, which is, which has been fantastic. And I can see and feel my evolution in that, because like when I first got there and, I'm listening to these guided meditations, which I had done somewhat before, but not much. And like this one, I'm doing every week for anywhere from 15 minutes to like a half hour. And these people are like, okay, now they're telling you, coaching you, breathe in for 4 seconds, exhale for 6, and
listening to the noise that's
and
entering your mind.
Basically coaching me how to breathe. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I'm like, fuck you. You're gonna teach me how to breathe? I've been breathing for 35 years. What do you know? And then
breathe out.
Yeah. Realizing, coming to the realization that I didn't know how to breathe, that I had never, it is something that I had.
And there's the hit.
Sure, I've been breathing, but I've been completely taking it for granted for 35 years. I was never conscious of the act and like how controlling the flow and like doing different intervals of breathing will create different feelings in your body.
Sure. Like
there's some natural state breathing where it's just like, just keep whatever's natural to you. And then, like one of the ones I like very much is the 4-2-6, where you inhale for 4, hold it for 2, and then breathe out for 6.
Well, there's a lot of those too.
There's a bunch of different intervals, and they all produce different feelings like in your body. And then there's like soft belly breathing, and then there's like diaphragmatic breathing, and like pranayamic breathing. Like there's so much you can go into. And it just highlights, a part of your life that is essential. It is one of the top 3 things you have to do. Like you gotta drink some water, eat some food, and fucking breathe.
Well, and it's beautiful because the breath occupies a very strange place in terms of all our bodily functions, in that it's both conscious and unconscious.
Yeah.
Like the autonomic nervous system will control your breathing. Like I don't notice that I'm breathing for the vast majority of my day.
Yes.
And it's helpful to not be aware of it the whole time. It would be distracting if you always had to do it on purpose.
Yeah, it'd be like seeing your nose constantly.
Right, but we can take over and breathe intentionally. And it's something about that, like something it's just biological, but it's also, intentional
and spiritual.
It's really grounding. Yeah, it's really I've any sort of tool that can like get you into the present, like the breath. Or I play a lot of music, and that can be a mindfulness exercise too, like a meditation.
Oh yeah.
When I was practicing, I used to practice a lot, and when I practiced a lot, it was like I was meditating for several hours a day, because it was, you have to stay focused. And I find like, for me, I've been meditating for a long time, but I'm not very good at it. So really? I have a very active, I'm probably giving myself too hard of a time, but I have a very active mind, and it just goes.
Yes.
And so like when I sit down to meditate, I don't always have a feeling of stillness, but I find if I'm doing something that's a little more directed, like if I decide to breathe intentionally, or
like a kinetic meditation,
right? Something that gives my mind a little bit of something to do, like a little bit of it seems to help to get me to that state of stillness and ease a little better. But I heard another meditation teacher talking about our expectations. Like, what do you expect when you're coming to meditation? It's going to have a lot to do with how you feel about it. If you expect to sit down and have no thoughts for 20 minutes,
not possible.
What are you smoking, right? Like some advanced meditators can do that, but they didn't start there.
Maybe. We don't know. That's what they say.
Well, there are neurological studies that would be consistent.
That's true.
The neuroimaging is kind of consistent without having any verbal thought processes going on. But again, some of those guys in those neuroimaging studies have been meditating for 50,000 hours.
Yes.
Which is like 5 times as long as it takes to master a difficult skill.
What, Buddha sat under a tree for 10 years? Something like that?
He did all kinds of crazy stuff for 10 years. Yeah.
But people forget that he left his wife and child
to
do that. Like, nobody ever talks about that part of Buddha. Everybody's like, oh, he's such an amazing thing. I was like, he was married. Yeah. And he had a kid. Yeah. And he fucking left them to go sit under a fucking tree.
And apparently never went back to find
Never went back. Never went back. Yeah. Total shit bag.
They weren't important. I mean, it was all about what's now.
He was playing chess while they were playing checkers. I get it.
Yeah. What's going on now? Let's talk about the now.
Now is your child is starving and your wife is street, Buddha. What are you doing?
What's in your brain, dude? What's going on up there?
You fat asshole. Go take care of your kid.
It's funny too with like the family values Christianity, where it's like you realize Jesus told people to abandon their families.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that this is necessarily very
and I'll tell you what,
Christian.
Yeah. Oh, what would Jesus do? Jesus would go to the market, pull out a bullwhip, and start whipping people. Right. That's what Jesus would do. He would flip over. Oh, you're selling trinkets in my temple? Fuck your table. Yeah. Get out.
Yeah, it's not.
I miss WWJD.
Domesticate the dude and turn him into something really like easy to handle, where it's like he was anything but that, right?
Dude, and I'm a firm believer that any religion is just a whatever flavor you want to cherry pick and to suit your own narrative. Go ahead.
Yeah.
But anyway, back
sure.
Back
that's
to
a whole
Buddha.
Other episode.
That's
maybe a different podcast.
Yeah, we'll have to get Herb in on that one.
Yeah, no,
his ears will be smoking.
I'll be the anti-man on that one. I'm pretty pro-religion, although I've never found myself able to adhere to any one religion.
I'm not anti-religion in any way, shape, or form. I'm anti-evangelism.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
I'm anti-dogma,
and that's my favorite. One of my favorite things George Carlin ever said. The 11th commandment should have been keep thy religion to thyself. Like if it helps you,
great,
beautiful.
Yeah,
leave me the fuck out of it. Leave everybody
I think
the fuck out of it.
That's something I really resent about recovery. Honestly,
okay,
is that
the 12th step?
Well, not the 12th step. The
forcing of a higher power?
your God, right? Like being the only answer.
Which
because I've met a ton of people more on the AA side where it's like, no, you have to have a God. Yeah, like you can't have a higher power. You have to have an actual like being, and it's like, no, dude, no, I don't have that. I don't have to have that. That's not part of the game here.
That's a it's one of those things where it's like the spirit of AA doesn't have anything to do with that. Like that's a
person.
It's
thing.
Somebody is not aware of their own tradition. Like they don't know what the tradition is about. Mm-hmm. Like the whole idea. Abby Thatcher telling Bill, like, choose your own concept of God.
Yeah.
And that might be no concept at all. And it makes it's a little weird working the steps without that concept. But at the same time, a lot of people do it and they're clean. So,
absolutely.
Like, who gives a fucking shit?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
if you're staying clean, that's the point. Like, I prefer to work it with a concept of God. But that's me. And if anybody else wants to tell me how I'm supposed to believe in God, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, one of my beliefs is that a higher power is just basically the ethereal principles of existence, like love, honesty, generosity, understanding. Like those things are a power greater than myself, because myself wants to lie to you, cheat, like not be generous, like the human condition wants me to be greedy and capitalistic and opportunistic on everybody else. But the more benevolent forces of the universe, I can surrender to them with a third step and a 10th step. And in the moment of whatever, it's like, oh, the boss is asking, who did this thing? Who broke the lamp? I broke the lamp. But am I going to lie about it, or am I going to tell the truth? And
lie.
Which I think comes back to, the mindfulness is that the...
yes, thank you. Reel it back.
And, I mean, I like that mindfulness has been taken and applied in a more secular way in Western society, and that it's being researched for mental health applications and all of that. But I think there can be a problem. It's almost like cultural appropriation if you don't...
We're good at that. We're really good at that.
If you don't honor the nature of the original tradition, and part of the original tradition, you talked about that Eightfold Path, is you have to have your ethics right. Like, if you are creating a bunch of moral chaos in your life, your ability to be mindful is going to be extremely limited.
Yes.
Right? Or you'll just be like a psychopath, where it's like you can be really present, but you're not necessarily
empathetic.
Present to, right? And without that empathy, how present are you to what's going on in front of you?
Yeah.
Right? You have to be open to the full range.
Yeah,
of
you're in the
experience.
world, but you're not a part of the world.
And there's no reciprocity, and there's no response, and I think when we start practicing mindfulness, there should be an understanding like this is probably going to open you up in some ways that are really uncomfortable.
Yes.
But that it's a matter of that heart opening brings pain, but it also brings like joy and the capacity to live in a way that actually feels like it means something.
Yeah.
There's a essentially Buddhist philosopher named Ken Wilber who somebody asked him about what's it like, with enlightenment or spiritual awakening of whatever degree, what's your relationship with pain and suffering in the world? And he says, well, it hurts more and it bothers you less. Which I found to be a very, and the times when I've been really mindful and really at peace, it's like, yeah, there can be like an ache in the chest,
Yeah.
just for the whole world, there can be a pain and an ache, but it's almost a beautiful thing, and it's not something you want to get away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that, like, I want to make 2 points on that. Everybody, back to cherry picking, we always cherry pick the good parts about love, and we're like, oh, it's beautiful and it's understanding and it's all accepting and all that, and it's like, yes, it is all those beautiful things, but love is also having really difficult conversations, and love is calling people out on their bullshit sometimes, and love is having arguments and fights and being willing to sit through really difficult times because you care about something that much that you have to sacrifice part of yourself, and they have to sacrifice part of themselves in order to come together as like a workable whole. Right. And so, yeah, everybody's saying, love is all these, and it is all those great things, but it's also a lot of really difficult things as well.
Yeah, there's a Big Thief song, I think it's called Real Love, and it's one line that says, real love is a heart attack.
Yeah.
Right. It's not this like light, fluffy thing. It's like pretty serious and has a lot of gravity to it. But like, do you really want a kind of love that's just light and happy and fluffy, or do you want something that's going to call the deepest levels of yourself into play?
Yeah.
Yep. Like, do you want a challenge that's going to help you awaken, or do you just want something to make you feel better?
Yeah, and it's sacrificing that part of yourself on an altar of vulnerability that you didn't even know, because I can put all this love on the table for Sam right now, and Sam can say, I don't want any of that.
Right.
And that's a tough concept to really. That's probably the biggest pill to swallow. Like, it's the size of a Twinkie, and they're like, hey, swallow that one all at once, and it's like, fuck that.
Yeah. It's a matter of losing control to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think people that avoid relationships, and I've been there myself, avoid that feeling of vulnerability and being out of control. And it's just like, something bad happened to me before where I let myself be out of control. I'm not going to let that happen again. The problem is, if you do that, you cut yourself off from yourself and from life. So living in a way of at risk. And I think, one thing that meditation practice and just a general sort of presence or mindfulness has helped me with is getting in touch with a part of myself that isn't as vulnerable to, it's a paradox. On the one hand, it makes me more vulnerable, but on the other hand, getting in touch with some dimension of spirit or consciousness that is, I'm going to be fundamentally okay no matter what happens.
Yes.
And that fundamental, like, I'm going to be okay no matter what happens, like, is a huge boost in my willingness and ability to put myself out there and take risks that might hurt me.
Yeah.
Because I know like this might hurt really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna survive it. I'm gonna be okay. Right.
Yeah. And you know, the second part, which you know goes back to whatever your current state is how we deal with grief, because grief, I think, is a lifelong recurring thing that takes I think it's kind of like a boggart in Harry Potter. It kind of takes the form of whatever your mental state is at the time. And I think, Eric, you should applaud that. That's a fantastic reference.
Good job, David. Good job. This is amazing. Oh my God. I'm getting wet over here.
You know, you made it cheap, and that kind of hurt me. Okay, but anyway, so but if your mind right, if my mind is right, when I think about somebody I've lost, I'm able to look at it through a lens of, you know, gratitude for what I had, and the time that it was, because, you know, reason, a season, and a lifetime. You know, everything changes. We're not all here till the end of the story. So, but when I'm in a good headspace, I can appreciate that for what it was. That these people got to be part of my story, and it was a beautiful time, and it was great. But they're not here anymore, and that's okay. And then other times, you know, the boggart will resurface, and it'll be catastrophic. It'll be catastrophic to me, and part of it's a selfishness. Because it's like, oh, what I've lost. It's not necessarily that the person's gone. It's like, oh, what I got, what I missed out on, like that level of grief. Which it's, but it's difficult, and it changes from time to time. But yeah, and it's the same with the past in general. Like, oh, there's times when I look back at my using, and you know, I have that thought of like, oh man, you know, I kind of miss doing some of that shit. Sure. Like some of that shit was glorified in my mind to, you know, be a nice shiny object that was fun for some reason. Right. And then other times I look back at it and I'm like, Jesus Christ, thank God I'm not there anymore. And so, yeah, it's all about perspective. Yeah. All right, Eric. What are your greatest challenges to, you know, staying present and mindfulness?
Oh, myself.
Okay. You're not that great. Okay.
Well, it's the distractions, right? Like, it's just my daily. It's my brain. It's like that moment when you're like going through your day, and then there's just like this hit of existential dread of like, oh my God, what the fuck is this bullshit?
Yeah, I always, whenever that happens, I picture that scene in Jaws when, you know, the sheriff's sitting on the beach and it's just like,
oh, the vertigo shot.
It just zooms in on him. Yeah. He's like, oh shit, there's a shark. Yeah, I always think of that. Like, they're like on days like that, it just hit, like, it's just like, oh fuck, here I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right?
Well, because you're a very busy human.
I do a lot of things too.
Yes.
My sister-in-law was like, how many projects are you working on in the house? I'm like, I don't know. I'm doing a lot.
Yeah. If we're looking at Eric's brain, you have many windows
There's
open.
Many different compartments.
Many screens open.
Yeah. It's hard to shut them down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my problem, right? That's my biggest issue when it comes to like trying to sit. It's because of the ADHD, you know, I can't sit still. Mm-hmm. I have to keep moving. So it's hard for me to sit still for a few minutes.
You know, there's a great home group for you.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go soon. Don't worry.
You should be part of that home group just for the meditation.
I should. I should be part of that.
Fuck the other half hour.
I know.
Whatever.
I should be part of that.
It really, dude. It is my favorite NA meeting that I've ever been a part of.
And I love that it's in Dickiesville. I love it.
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy at Platform Tennis about Dickiesville the other day.
Yeah.
And just how weird it is of a place.
It is
like he was like, imagine a white enclave New England community just smack dab in the middle of like Northwest Baltimore.
Yeah, and right next to like a park where they find dead bodies
all the time. All the time. Yep. Yeah. Lincoln Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I enjoy the meeting when I always mean to get. I actually have a home group on Thursdays as well, but it's like I mean it's a little more relaxed group. I don't have to be there every week if but I'll try to come.
Does anyone think the spelling of Lincoln Park is fucking stupid?
What do you mean?
It's spelled Leaken, and it's pronounced Lincoln.
Leakin Park?
Lincoln.
I know, but it's technically Leakin Park.
Not here.
Yeah, I think that might be one of those cases where the language evolved a little bit and we just say things wrong.
Yeah, dude. American English is a smattering.
Because
it
should. Have you guys ever seen the great like Instagram thing where it's that guy explaining English?
Yeah.
And he's like cow, and then it's like then he puts like toe on there, and he's like, what does this mean? It's like towel. And he's like, no,
he's like, no, that's toe.
What are you?
Yeah. And there's like an endless supply of those.
Oh my god, everywhere, dude.
With.
They're so funny.
They're so funny.
Yeah.
And there's also those people who they'll do like 3 or 4, basically the big 4 translations. They'll do like an American word for something, and then the Spanish word, and then the French word, and then the German word. And the German word is just
always long.
It's just completely ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Gudenheimens.
Yeah, it's like, oh, hospital, hospital, and then it's like Krankenwagen. And you're like, what the fuck? Why is this happening?
Krankenwagen.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, I think a hospital is a Kranken house, and then an ambulance is a Krankenwagen.
Krankenwagen.
Very weird.
Wow.
Yeah, very baffling. But yeah, back to your distractions from mindfulness. Your challenges.
It's myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's me. I think, and time are the
It's
biggest
good that you didn't
challenges.
use like the cop out of like everything in life.
No,
because
it's me. It's I make time for what I value.
It is a very
right?
honest answer.
And I believe that. Like,
yes.
I believe if
That's
I want
more
to
healthy
exercise, then I'm going to exercise. And like, I should, if I care about something, I should be able to find enough time to put it in my day.
Okay.
Or I don't give a fuck about it.
And that's something I've really been cutting a lot of bullshit out of my life in like the last like 6 months. And just really telling people, I'm like, listen, if you care about something, if you truly care about something, you will make it happen.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you will find an excuse. Period. Like, if recovery is important to you, you'll make it happen. If it's not important to you, you will find an excuse not to do it.
That's true.
And, that's not just giving up drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, whatever. Like, it's reaching for a better version of yourself. If reaching for a better version of yourself is important to you, efforts will be made. And if it's not important to you, then they won't. And people want to be like, yeah, well, and it's like, no, there is no yeah, well. It's just it is or it isn't.
Yeah, and I mean that's the great thing about mindfulness is that there are no circumstances in which you can't practice it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely everything. Like all we ever have is the present moment. That is reality for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is getting in the way of being present now? And it's never what's actually going on. It's what's going on with me, and like Eric was talking about, like the biggest hurdle is the self. And that's what we're dealing with in a spiritual journey. It's like primarily just, it's a journey with ourself. We're, shadow boxing ourselves, learning to overcome like
the shadow boxing ourselves, Eric. There it is.
Yeah. That's the hit.
That's the hit. Yeah. Mindfulness, presence, in parentheses, shadow boxing yourself.
Shadow boxing yourself. Yeah. Wow.
God damn. And on like going back a little bit, like I love what you said about like when you were talking about breathing, because I'd never thought of that before. Because yes, it is part of our autonomic nervous system. It just does what it does most of the time. Sure. But we have the ability and the choice to change it. But everything at like, oh, how's my kidney processing? I don't know. I can't fucking change that. It's gonna do that. Whatever my like. If God, Eric wishes he could just change his stomach. Like, my stomach is gonna do this now. Like that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But we don't have that level of control over most of our body.
There is biofeedback. You can learn to control certain autonomic responses, like your heart rate and your blood pressure and your body temperature.
Yes.
But that's fucking like takes a while to learn, and it's like, why do you want to do it?
And there's only certain percentages of it that you actually can control.
Sure,
like you can't control it 100%, but you're breathing like
yeah, it's 100%.
yeah. When your mind clicks into conscious breathing, you can control it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just funny too the way like if you start consciously breathing, try to breathe without being conscious of it. Like try to just let it happen. Once you do it, you're doing it automatically.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like when you incept something into somebody's brain, you're like, oh, okay, a white horse. Now try and not think about a white horse. And it's like, well, of course I'm thinking about that. You just said it 3 times, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I used to do these yoga nidra meditations, which means sleep yoga, and you do it lying down. Mm-hmm. It's like a body scan, breathing kind of thing. And and the instructor would say, try to sneak up on your breath. Try to like sneak up, so you're gonna like approach it enough so that it's still just happening naturally, but which is very challenging to be aware of the breathing without controlling it.
Yeah.
But I think there's something valuable in that too, like if you can do it, because it's that not trying to control life, just being aware without pushing back. And there's certain circumstances where being in control is fine, and we want to be moving and changing and doing all that kind of shit. But in meditation, it's like you're invited to take some time to not be in control. Take some time to not try to fix, to not judge, not evaluate. If you want to judge and evaluate later, go for it. But like now, let's see what happens if you stop doing that for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And one of my home group members, Martin, said something about that, which was very true. He was like, if you're going into a meditation thinking, I need this temperature, I need this pillow, I need this type of meditation, I need this type of voice, I need this type of guidance, and he's like, then you don't really want to meditate. Right. He's like, you're not really trying to, like, you're trying to cultivate a specific experience.
Right.
You're basically chasing the dragon of a meditation.
Right.
Not having an actual natural experience of something new. And by all means, if you have a meditation that you like and enjoy, by all means, you can go back to it at any time. But also, try new ones. Like, don't just do the same thing every time, because it'll give your brain the chance to actually kind of adjust and ignore to your surroundings. Because sometimes you can be in a room that's too fucking hot and you feel uncomfortable, and you're like, okay, I have to become comfortable with this surrounding. Right. Or this the volume is too loud, and it's like, okay, well, I have to adjust to this volume. Or like, this person's voice is fucking goofy, which happens sometimes. Like, I will listen to like, and this might sound terrible, and it probably does, but like, there are some meditations that come on with somebody who just has a very, very thick Indian accent, and it's very difficult for me not to laugh, because there's just so many like comical tropes that I've been brought up with. So like, I'm and this is terrible, but like, I hear like The Simpsons, I hear Abu, and I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Like, I shouldn't be hearing.
And then you're judging yourself.
And then I'm judging. I'm like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, I'm thinking this guy who is just saying some beautiful things in his just attempt to speak a second language to him, obviously, and I'm just judging him like, oh, dude, like, and I'm really holding back on not doing an Indian person impersonation right now, because it's terrible.
It's not. Yeah, don't do that.
I'm not gonna do it. But like, my mind, like I'm a comedian at heart, so that I want to do that so bad for the level of comedy, but it's so rude. Yeah. But yeah, that's like the stuff my brain will do. Like I'll click on something and it's guru someone or other, and the words he's saying are amazing, but like, I can't deal with the way it's being said. So what's wrong with me? But he was saying, he was like, that's not actual meditation, that's conditional meditation. And if you're going into it with a conditional meditation, then you're not really going into it with like the best possible opportunity for a good outcome.
Yeah, but I would agree, and especially because it's like, is your meditation, is the goal to become open to reality as reality is, or to get some specific experience that you want for some whatever reason it is. And those experiences might be enjoyable and helpful sometimes, but I think the more basic practice of just being open to whatever comes is more helpful. And something you were talking about, like whether it's too hot, or the volume is too loud, or you can understand the speaker. It's a little bit like if you were to sit down and you didn't have anything that was bothering you. It's a little bit like going to the gym and there's no equipment. Like you don't have anything to work with. You know, I stole that from somebody, but like you don't have anything to work with.
Damn it! You should have just taken it. You should have been like, I made that up myself right now.
But it, yeah, fucking rigorous honesty. But like that, I have that attitude sometimes about my own spinning mind. Like I sit down and it's like, okay, this is what I'm working with right now, and this is what's here right now, and can I be present when the mind isn't quiet? Can I still be quiet if the mind is going and just like watching it like a river or whatever? And
you can't beat the river into submission. You just have to surrender to its flow.
I love that. There's a proverb. There's a proverb in I like your honesty. There's a proverb in, I think it's in the book of Proverbs in the Bible, that says don't push the river.
It's
not going to do anything.
Nope, not going to happen. I want to just for people out there, I'm going to go through our favorite types of meditation. So for me, one thing I love a good emotional based meditation. I've in the last 18 months, I've done a lot more research and and what's cool, like this, my meditation home group started as like, I'm going on Thursday and I'm meditating 15 minutes or half an hour a day. And then like, as I felt the difference, I was like, okay, I need to infuse this more times a week. So it has branched out into, I'm actually sitting down to meditate for 15 minutes, half an hour, many days of the week, and not just one time a week. But anyway, so my research, like I really love basically personifying my emotions and realizing that they're not my enemies. Like my anger and my anxiety and my frustration and my sadness and my depression are not really my enemies. They're, just like you said, they're trying to teach me something, and they're trying to like make me become aware of something that's going on around me, or how I can better handle whatever's happening internally to move forward. So, like when sadness comes, you say, okay, sadness, come here, like sit with me for a while. Tell me what you have to tell me, but then it's time to leave. And really getting to an emotional maturity level that I had never known before, because most people, until they get into mindfulness and meditation, and especially me, I had the belief that I was my thoughts. I was my emotions, and that's not the fact. That's not like the closer reality is that you are your actions. That's a closer reality, because that's more of a realistic track record of like, okay, this is what you've done. Like what you've thought and what you felt is not necessarily like that can coalesce out of anywhere. Like you can see a pigeon in the street and you're like, kick that pigeon. Like your brain
don't kick that pigeon.
No, you don't kick the pigeon, but your brain can say that, and it comes out of nowhere.
Poor pigeons.
But if you actually kick the pigeon, then you're a fucking you're a pigeon kicker.
I mean,
like, pigeons, that is what you are.
You should feel bad for pigeons.
They
were domesticated, and then we just kind of gave up on them.
But you being a culmination of your actions is more realistic than you being a culmination of your thoughts and your emotions.
That's Aristotle. I mean, we are what we habitually do.
Yes, exactly.
The Buddhist perspective is more like
by the way.
It's more transpersonal perspective. That it's that pure conscious awareness of self, and I think it's one of these circumstances where both perspectives are helpful. They're both true in their own way.
Yes. But so for me, shadow work meditations, guided meditations have been, transformative for me, and being able to right size my emotions, which I love that phrase. Once I heard that, not maximizing an emotion or minimizing any emotion, just letting it exist as it is for whatever time it needs to exist, and then letting it go. And it's the same with thoughts. Like, let the thoughts that arise die a natural death, as they should.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite types of meditations. But I also I like a good journey meditation sometimes, where you're like, hey, we're walking through this beautiful meadow, and look, there's a stream, and then you walk along the stream until you find a staircase, and you're like,
take the staircase.
It's something I can really
staircase.
When I'm in the right mindset, I can really get into, and I can activate my imagination. So I'm like, oh, cool.
Yes, and by engaging your mind in those meditations, I think it quiets the mind a little bit, because it's giving it something to do.
Exactly. It's giving you a construct and a medium for your brain to create a stimuli,
right?
Which is cool. So those journey meditations are super cool. So those are the two I'll go with. Let's all try 2 examples. What about you, Sam?
The one I do most frequently is just ordinary, what would you might call a witnessing meditation. The witness is
like a body scan.
Not necessarily. That can be helpful. With the witnessing is the capacity of the mind to notice without any judgment. It's just awareness. It's pure watching. It's not involved. It's that I'm not my thoughts. Well, you find I'm not my thoughts by being able to witness our thoughts. Mm-hmm. So I just will tend to sit down. I usually do before bed, and put. So
it's somewhat of a transcendental.
Yeah, it's transcendental in a broad sense, but not really the way.
Yes.
It's not like TM.
Yes.
But it is sort of in a way, although it doesn't necessarily have to be super metaphysical. It can also just be in psychoanalysis they call it the observing ego. That there's a part of your ego which is just aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
But so I like doing that. I found once I started cultivating that, I had some element of that witnessing awareness with me all the time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was really really strong and really and I found that there was an immense amount of love in that witnessing. Mm-hmm. It was just effortless, and that didn't last for very long. But some amount of awareness that's outside of just the thinking has just been a support, and has kind of stayed with me. But I also. Music is meditation I already talked about, but also walking meditation I really like.
Nice.
The Thich Nhat Hanh is a big walking meditation person, and he and his monks walked around Vietnam during the Vietnam War, ministering to people, not telling them, not like a minister, but caring for them, providing support, and he said, when the way they were able to do that work without getting compassion fatigue or burnout is that when they're walking, they just pay attention to their walking. They're not in the previous town. They're not in the next town, right? What is this next step? And there's something about when you're doing that and feeling the sole of your foot and feeling yourself touching the earth, that step can become the whole universe in that moment. You're just that one next step, and it's your whole journey is condensed down into that one movement. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be that existential, but it can be helpful to have something where you're moving, it's involving your body, and
I am here in this point in time. Yep.
And it gives you something to keep coming back to. Mm-hmm. That's the focal point of your meditation is those footsteps, and it's keep coming back to it 1,000 times during I go to Centennial Lake a lot and walk around the lake. It's I might get distracted.
A million times.
Yeah. Who knows how many times?
Yep.
Many times.
Yep.
But you keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. Nice. What about you, Eric? Your favorite types of meditation?
Mine are definitely the breath work meditations. Mm-hmm. Because they actually give you physiological feelings. You actually get a little bit of a buzz or whatever.
Oh, so you're you're just chasing another dragon.
I guess so.
You're just using breath work heroin.
And then the other one, I mean, similar to what Sam said, but walking, but in nature, going on hikes and stuff. Those are definitely my meditative. I try to do almost every day. Mm-hmm. Just go into the woods. Walk around and shit.
Yeah, and anybody out there, there's meditation is such a broad spectrum. I kind of just thought of this. It's very much a higher power.
Meditation.
Yeah. It is so personal to whoever it is that, whatever you choose to be your, quote unquote happy place is a form of meditation. Like if it's reading books, absolutely a meditation. Like I love a good mystery novel, me following Hercule Poirot in like whatever goofy case he's trying to solve. I'm able to, suspend disbelief of life for a little while to, be existing in this book at that moment, or a movie, or, some people it's exercise, some people it's cooking. It can be a lot of things. Yeah, focusing on your breath work, focusing on your step. And I know it's not technically meditation, but it is like yoga. For
yoga
sure.
is absolutely technically meditation.
Yeah. It's a physical
like
meditation.
a somatic meditation.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I don't think a lot of people necessarily, especially, I don't know. I think there needs to be a greater emphasis on it, moving forward, because it's in the 11th step, but it doesn't really talk about it much in any other step. Like they mention it like it is verbally in the 11th step, but other than that, it's like,
Yeah, and like you're saying, with all these different possibilities, I think, my definition of meditation would be anything that you're doing with your full focus,
with your whole self. Yep.
And I think that it is helpful to have a meditation practice that's a little bit less like Matthew Fox is like a esoteric Christian theologian who doesn't even talk about God. He just talks about the world and like life. He's very beautiful, but
nice.
He talks about introverted meditation and extroverted meditation.
Okay.
So an extrovert meditation might be something like painting, which is still a pretty introverted activity, but it's expressed outward.
Yes.
Whereas the introverted meditation might be something like a mantra or the breath work, and it's inward. And I would just, for myself, want to have all of these options available to me.
Yeah.
Like whatever. And I'm hoping that after talking about this with you guys, I'm going to be inspired to double down on my own mindfulness efforts, and because otherwise, what's the point? But
and also just realize them, kind of, with the 12th step, practice these principles in all of our affairs,
every moment.
Yeah, that mindfulness, like when you're, that tune comes on the radio, crank it up a little bit louder and
feel it.
Feel that song. Sing like, oh, the sun is coming through. My windshield. The temperature's good. Life is good. Life is a highway, man.
That reminds me of, and
I really hate that. I just said life is a highway.
Life is a highway.
Oh my god.
Dun, 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 dun.
All night long. But
all I can see is Michael Scott.
There was a story I heard, to speak to what you just said, about turning it up and really feeling it. A story I heard of a Zen practitioner. I don't think she's a monk, she's a lay person, but she's a Zen practitioner, and she said she went on a Zen retreat one time and she was meditating. And you go on a Zen retreat, you're going to meditate for 5 or 6 hours a day. It's intense. I've never done it, but I would kind of like to. But she said she was meditating. It was a few hours in the day, and it was time for breakfast because they start very early. And she said a monk brought her a bowl of oatmeal. She tasted the oatmeal and she started crying because she realized that she had never tasted oatmeal in her entire life. Her entire life, she wasn't experiencing life as it was. She was too distracted. She couldn't feel it. So I think that's what's at stake.
See, Eric, you can cry over oatmeal.
Well, you can.
Yes, I can, because I'm tuned into my emotions, you fucking robot. Close some screens and enjoy the sunset, you bastard.
I don't know about all that, dude. I mean, jeez.
But the stakes that we have are, like, we can miss our lives.
Yeah.
It's very easy to, and this might be it. This might be all we get.
Yeah. So and like, that's a recurring joke from Eric, because I told him the story about how when I was in Yosemite with my wife.
Oh, Jesus.
See? Look at this. This is just disdain for my emotional process.
Oh my God, there was such a beautiful sunset.
Yeah, we were at Glacier Point and we're watching the sunset over the far edge of the Sierra Nevadas, and you can see forever. because you're 11,000 feet up and you're just seeing everything. Like Yosemite Falls is down, and it's beautiful. And she had never been to California, so she had never seen like a West Coast sunset and shit like that. And this was my third time going to Yosemite, and it's where I proposed to her, and it was just like such a monumental event like that. I can share this moment with this woman I love.
Oh, you both cried.
Yeah, we shed some tears. Yeah, we're sitting there at Glacier Point watching the sunset, and yeah, I was like, life does not get better than this. Yeah. It doesn't. Like there's like this, like obviously I think there's an echelon. It's not like a zenith point, but there's an echelon of like this is upper echelon living, and dude, there's been times when I'm putting my son to sleep that I'm like, life doesn't get better than this. Like I'm sitting here singing the Beatles to him as he's going to sleep. Like this is perfect. This moment is amazing. And yes, it is emotionally overwhelming for me in those moments. So yeah, I have cried over a sunset. I have cried while singing the Beatles singing my son to sleep with the Beatles, or the Mamas and the Papas, or whatever.
I cried at a Tool concert.
I cried at a Slipknot concert a couple times.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I was weeping for like the first set. It was just like the whole time.
Yeah, dude. And like Paul and I have cried at Slipknot shows because it is weird. It is such a physical and like emotionally visceral experience. Dude, Paul and I are very serious. We're like, this is not just a concert. Like this is an experience. Like this is because it's been something I've been listening to for 25 years and like emotionally gravitated to and understood for that long of my life. That when I'm fully present in this like very physical music and like they're giving out and like it, yeah, there is an emotional like vibrational exchange in those moments that is very palpable if you're willing to be vulnerable and open to it. So yeah, dude, concerts and music and like are art in all its forms. I think can be an amazing meditation.
Yeah, the visionary artist Alex Gray talks about art as a spiritual path. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, there's like 4 spiritual paths in Hinduism, which are pretty comprehensive. You got your action path, like doing good works, and meditation path, and then the studying and gaining knowledge path. And there's some other one. It might be love. Mm-hmm. And then that's the devotional path. And then, but art is like its own thing. Like creating something new is different than all of those other things. It has elements of all of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the great thing about art is that you don't have to be good at it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be good at it. You just do it. Like
it's just what level you like let yourself express.
Yeah, it's about feeling that. I mean, early on in that same winter when I was reading Eckhart Tolle, I was painting a lot, and I would drink too much coffee and just paint for hours. And
dude, have you ever heard how many pots of coffee Dave Grohl drinks? He drinks like 4 pots of coffee a day.
Really?
Yes.
That's too much,
who,
dude.
Who drinks that much?
Dave Grohl.
YouTube
it. He is drinking coffee 24/7. It's
because
nuts.
That's stupid because 500 milligrams is like a toxic dose of
I think
caffeine.
400 milligrams is the maximum recommended by the FDA.
Yeah.
200 milligrams is the maximum for a single serving, which is what Celsius is. They're like, we'll go to the max.
That's what Valerian, or not, what is it, Vivitrol, or I have like a caffeine pill that has 200.
Why do you have caffeine pills, Eric?
Because sometimes coffee takes too long.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You're not an addict.
I'm just finding a more efficient route of administration.
I get it.
Voltaire was reported to drink 68 cups of coffee a day.
Yes.
That's absurd.
Yeah. Voltaire, didn't he also have like gonorrhea like 23 times in his life?
I don't know. Like that? I don't know.
He got gonorrhea or chlamydia like an insane amount of times. I mean, that's the French for you.
Yeah.
Good for them. Yeah. God bless them. Any other topics by anybody? Eric? You got anything else?
No. I think we're good.
Are you fully in this moment? Are you fully present? Are you gonna cry for me?
No, I don't cry, David.
I know
that.
you don't.
It's very rare. It's
robot.
very
dead
rare.
inside. Dead
He
inside.
is. It's not that he's dead inside. It's just that he has compartmentalized everything so efficiently and effectively that
my wife.
It is
I'll
like
give
a
you,
dolphin's butt.
I'll give you a weird.
Watertight.
So I'll give you a weird example. Like I've been mentally
My wife is
preparing
crying.
myself for my cats to die for probably the past like 10 years. So I feel like once they do die, I'll be like in a pretty good spot, like I will have like, because now I'm at a point of like, okay, they're like in their teens, like I have a real appreciation for their life. I'm grateful for the life they've had. Like,
so are we thinking burial or funeral pyre?
Oh, we haven't talked about this. What I want like,
I can shoot a flaming arrow. Dude.
Hellboy style, like labyrinth of a crypt.
You're gonna create a cat crypt. What is
and I
wrong
want there to be like little like maybe like a boulder or something, some traps.
What's your budget, Eric? What's your budget on
Yeah,
this?
I don't know.
Give me a number.
Yeah, you're gonna booby trap their sarcophagus with salt acid.
Well,
Yeah.
no, this is
psychopath.
this is also for me too. I want to be there as well.
So you're gonna booby trap your own tomb.
Yeah. I definitely
It's
I've
not done
always
enough
He's gonna have his cats in Coptic jars outside of Eric's sarcophagus.
I've always dreamed of having like a huge crypt that I could like
What
booby
is
trap.
wrong
Yeah,
with that? Is so.
Since I was a little boy, I thought about how I was going to be
die.
buried.
I just like the Egyptians, like
crypt.
shit.
Oh my god! That is one way to end this podcast. how we can project our own deaths into the future. The exact opposite of mindfulness and being present in the moment.
Well, it's no.
But we were open to it, though.
Yeah,
But we were open to it.
And we
That's
didn't
true.
judge. We didn't judge.
We didn't judge. I judged a little bit about
well,
the cat
I did
crypt.
too. But,
Okay,
but
thank
like,
you.
so we did. We did. That wasn't mindful at all.
That was not mindful at all. It was terrible.
A catacomb.
It's a catacomb.
Anything.
Oh my god.
Anything can be a meditation, including shitting on Eric. So
That's true. That
A
is absolutely.
catacomb?
Okay, wait, hold on. Have you gone into any of like the research of the catacombs?
Which ones?
So like the major ones in like France. They don't really know how they got built.
really.
Well, wasn't it the Romans?
No. Look in. I'm telling you, look into it. Like I
Look
went
into
down a
what,
rabbit hole one day. The amount of skulls that are down there and
Oh,
bones.
I know about the skulls.
No.
I've seen those.
Listen, the amount of time that it would take to ornately place all of those in place and like with all the elaboration that they did would take such a gross amount of time with such like it would take so many people.
Where did
so
they get
much
all
time.
those bones?
Thank you. They don't know. They don't understand. They were like, do you understand this is millions of bodies? Do you realize how much time it would take somebody to do all of this shit? They were like, it would take not decades, but like hundreds of years. And they were like, this is an astronomical like undertaking.
How did they do that?
Thank you. Dude, I'm telling you, I've sent you both down a rabbit hole. Look into it. It's horrifying because they don't know. They're like,
it's kind of beautiful, honestly. I'm looking at it.
But
it looks
also
beautiful.
for the time that they were built, they were like, there really weren't that many humans on Earth.
Right.
So
Well, I mean,
where did this amount of bodies
They
at
have-
the same time collectively come from?
they have this beautiful like buttressed like column of like
skulls. Dude,
and,
it's an engineering feat of human bones.
And are these femurs? I think
yes,
these are femurs.
dude, it's horrifying. It is horrifying. Like
It's not. I mean, it's kind of
No, it's absolutely beautiful, but it's
Yeah.
horrifying on the level that it's just
those
where-
are people. Yes, that is kind of horrifying.
Just like where did it come from? It is a pyramid level like mystery of human bones. Anyway, that's where we're gonna end it, everybody.
Fascinating.
Thank you for
Alright.
joining us for another. This was a fantastic podcast. Like there was so much. We ran the gamut of car problems and catacombs and crypts and Aristotle to Eckhart Tolle, which I know is pronounced that way now. But we would like to thank our guest Sam for joining us once again today.
Woo! Yay!
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. Everybody out there, thanks for listening. Go to all our social media outlets. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, become part of our Patreon, because we need help keeping the mics on because we are self-supporting. But most importantly, everybody out there,
stay safe and stay clean.